Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, and welcome. And I think this is an irrelevant statement, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Stone, and I'm the president of the Blue Shield. Welcome everybody to the 2021 General Assembly of the Blue Shield. Thank you also for many of you attending the last 2 days of the Blue Shield 25th anniversary conference. We have had a large number of congratulatory emails and texts about the conference. I think it went very well, and the conference will be available on YouTube in its full. We hope in early January. I don't think we're going to manage to get it up before the Christmas break, but we will get it up in early January, as I say, if not before. So thank you for those who attended. Thank you for those who spoke. And I think it was a very successful event and a credit to everybody and all of the hard work that's gone on. So thank you very much for that. Before we start the process of going through the documentation that we need to agree and authorize at this meeting, I just want to provide a slight update about the fact that we are not today, as we had hoped to be, commenting or discussing proposed revisions to the Articles of Association. Right at the beginning of this year, I'd asked for minor amendments, for example, the post of vice president and the ability to have regional committees added to the Articles of Association. And I'd also asked the Dutch lawyers to streamline the Articles of Association to their absolute minimum as required under Dutch law. Moving any other information or processes to an internal regulations document. And the thinking behind that, as agreed obviously by the board, was that the internal regulations would come entirely under the control of the General Assembly and not needing to go back to get legal notary sign off and permission to do everything for some really very detailed stuff that there was, to our mind, no need to be in the Articles of Association. Almost at the same time, Dutch law governing associations, and the Blue Shield is what the Dutch call an association, changed fairly dramatically. So, for example, it moved to the need for an annual, not a triannual General Assembly. The effective requirement of the use of, therefore, calendar years for planning and reporting, and the introduction of the Auditing Committee, and a number of other issues. This actually resulted in the draft Articles of Association that the lawyers sent back to us mid-year being, I think, even longer, certainly the same length as those that we had asked them to cut to their bare minimum. And we are still trying to work with them to see if we cannot reduce the size of the articles and, as I say, move as much as possible under the control of the General Assembly, in other words, under the control of the organisation, as opposed to under the legal control of Dutch lawyers. The changes in Dutch law have also required some specific changes. So the annual accounts, which we'll come to later, must be audited within 6 months of the year end. And as the changes also predicate essentially a calendar year approach to the articles, that means that we have to have our future General Assemblies on an annual basis in the first half of the year. And that's in order for the Auditing Committee to make its report to the General Assembly in a due time. So that means that from the board's point of view, we will probably be having our General Assemblies from 2022 in May or June every year. Even though currently we don't have to legally file anything under Dutch law because our income expenditure is so minimal, we need that process to be in place in case. So in order to meet that change of the move from 3-year General Assemblies to annual General Assemblies, and those General Assemblies having to take place in the first half of the year, it means that we are going to have to ask all national committees for annual reports for 2021 and plans for 2022 in the first instance by the end of February of next year. My apologies for that, but as the reports will be for the calendar year 2021, they will be very similar to those already submitted. And we have many of the annual plans for 2022 already. So we hope it won't be a massive burden, but we are in this interchange period under Dutch law that we have to comply by. Emma will be sending details of what we need out in the first week back in January. So hopefully there won't be too much additional work for national committees, and we are here to try and support you as much as possible as that goes on. I hope, but at the moment it is only a hope, that we will have agreed revised Articles of Association to bring to you at the 2022 General Assembly, which will be in either May or June of next year. So that's the plan at the moment. As just an aside, an observation from a non-lawyer, it does seem slightly odd that the lawyers require the General Assembly to vote on a document which is in fact almost non-changeable because of the rules and regulations of Dutch law. But so be it, that's where we appear to be. And that's one of the issues that we're trying to confirm with the lawyers as we move on. So I hope that is clarity for everybody. I'm sorry about it, but that's just where we're at. And believe me, the board are equally frustrated, as I'm sure some of you are. So that moves us to the next agenda item, the approval of annual documentation. And there are therefore only 3 votes, one for the Blue Shield International annual report, one for the report of the Treasurer, and finally the BSI 2022 annual plan. Many of you have noted that there was a mistake in some of the documentation that we sent out, and that the annual plan as sent out on the agenda was referred to as the 2021 strategic plan. And there goes a lesson to us all not to cut and paste from one document to another. Our apologies for that. We think from those national committees who have already voted that everybody understood that the 2 documents, even though named differently, were in fact the same document. But I know 1 or 2 of you have held off to hear that clarification so that you can vote in person later on in this meeting. And that's obviously a sensible way forward. And again, my apologies that we've done that. We made that mistake. The second point that I'd just like to flag in terms of the annual report is that it goes for the period November to November, and the board did that simply because I was writing the document in November. Excuse me. As from next year, it will become a calendar year report, and so that's just for clarity around that. I will now just pick out a few points in the annual report, and rather than leave all of the discussion of the three documents to the end, what I'm going to do is slightly break with the agenda as circulated, so that we can keep things fresh in our mind. And if people want, after I've mentioned a few things of the highlights of this report, to ask any questions about it, we'll have a short Q&A session once I've finished speaking. So the first point I'd just like to pull out is we are becoming better and better and wider known on various forms of social media. For those of you who know me fairly well, you'll understand, or you'll know that I don't understand social media very well. But we are almost doubling, or more than doubling, our presence on a number of social media outlets and maintaining our presence on the others. So that's really a major step forward, and is down not only to Emma Cunliffe's great work, but also to a volunteer, Jessica Barry, and our heartfelt gratitude goes to both Jessica and Emma for that great work. Second thing I'd just like to flag and have noted is that the secretariat that works for Blue Shield is enabled to work for us because of the funding that Newcastle University gives to the UNESCO Chair in Cultural Property Protection and Peace at Newcastle University, of which I'm the chairholder. So the university provides funding for 1.5 other members of staff, Emma full-time, and now Michael de la Cruz on a 0.5 contract. And without that funding from the university, we would not be in a position of the strength that I think we are beginning to be in at the moment. And so formally, I need as president to thank the university for that funding, which is a fairly astonishing situation to be in, with one university flagging or providing the funding and underwriting an international organization. We can't, however, rest on our laurels and expect that to continue forever into the future. And at the moment, that funding for the UNESCO chair, and therefore by default for the Secretariat of the Blue Shield, runs out on the 31st of December 2023. And that's why one of the main priorities, as flagged in the board report, is the search for other funding to support the Blue Shield. It's not to say that the university won't continue to support the UNESCO chair, but we can't guarantee that that will come forward. The next thing I'd just like to pick up is the work that we are increasingly able to do between working with national committees and Blue Shield centrally. And we've had some great examples of that with Blue Shield Germany working on a project to develop national committees in Africa, Blue Shield Turkey for its pilot project on research inherited destruction and loss in conflict. And of course, as many of you will have seen at the conference, the work that Blue Shield International was able to do with Blue Shield Lebanon and the NGO Biladi in Lebanon with UNIFIL and the Lebanese Armed Forces following the horrendous explosion on the 4th of August of 2020. So all of that is really very important. Another point I'd like to flag is the Accreditation Committee and the hard work that essentially 3 people put into all of that work on the committee, and I'll mention people and thanks later on, but the Accreditation Committee does a great deal of work. We've had 2 new committees this year, Turkey and Mali, and we have another tranche of national committees being worked with at the moment, and we hope that a number of those will become formal national committees. And we hope also that committees that have been sitting waiting for the changes to the Articles of Association, in particular Blue Shield Pacifica, will be able to join fully in Blue Shield activities, and especially in voting and the such. So thank you very much to that, and thank you also to the Illicit Trafficking Working Group for all of their hard work. It's very frustrating because much of the work of that group is confidential, and so you don't see the bulk of the serious work that is done, and that only becomes apparent after the event. But believe me, from the bits that I know of that they are working on, they are doing Blue Shield a great credit, and really making a difference in particular cases in the fight against illicit trafficking. And we are waiting for a document to come from the planned emergency response working group to the board in early next year. Everybody will know that this year has been the 25th anniversary of the Blue Shield, and there has been a plethora of work done over that, again mainly based on volunteers supporting that work, and again thank you to everybody involved in that and that work. The report documents all of the exercises and the training courses and the conferences and the expert groups and other activities that the Secretariat and the board have done, our work with other organizations, and also flags are the first block of our training program for national committees, which we've had the first formal feedback sessions with national committees on those, which in the main were very positive. There are a few issues around process and length of some of the sessions, which I apologize for being the main culprit, but we'll address those for block 2. We've got another set of feedback sessions with national committees, I think in the first week of January, and we'll with the feedback from those meetings, 4 meetings, and with the online feedback, we hope to be able to modify and circulate the sessions for the block 2 training fairly early in the new year. So that's where we are there. There is, at the end of the report, the annual plan and activities that we did in 2021, which if anybody wants to ask any questions about, feel free. Excuse me. And that's the everything that I want to pull out of the annual plan, sorry, of the annual report for last year, or November 20 to November 21. And I'm opening the floor to anybody who would like to have a question or a comment. There is, of course, no need if nobody wants to. And at the moment, hi, who's that?
Hi, this is Manana from Georgia.
Manana from Georgia, the floor is yours.
Okay, just a quick one. Maybe I misunderstood. Did you say that the Emergency Response Working Group will have a paper about their work to share, or?
No, sorry. that group has been approved in principle by the board. The board is waiting for the paper from that group to suggest what the remit of the group can be and what it can do, and the parameters for the group, what it can do, but also what it won't be able to do. And we expect that for the board meeting in, just let me get it right, April, I think, of next year.
So we'll hear from them in further detail.
So we'll hear more detail after that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Manana. Anybody else? I don't see any hands raised. I don't see any comments in the chat. So we'll leave that. And that takes us to the Treasurer's report. And I hand over to Klaus to give a summary of the Treasurer's report. Klaus.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. The Treasurer's report is mainly about the activities to meet the requirements of Dutch law for association, that is getting all board members registered at the Dutch Chamber of Commerce, KVK, which is now nearly completed, not fully, but nearly completed. There is secondly having an annual financial report, which covers the calendar year. So this is the reason why this report is, by contrast to the president's the board's report, it covers only the period of 2020, and is thirdly setting up a bank account. Different options were checked up to now, but not made a decision by now, since we are also awaiting for maybe the revised articles for this, then, because the bank will need the articles to let us open an account. As you can see from the report, there were no funds or income directly to the association, and correspondingly no expenses. So, but just for information and for clarity and for transparency, there are some figures added to the report. All staff, as President Peter Stone already mentioned, all staff is paid by the UNESCO chair, by the University of Newcastle. Apart from these personnel costs, some expenses that resulted from activities of Blue Shield International, so for example, travel expenses, website expenses, were additionally covered by the university, who we thank also for this support. Further, there, as you can see from the report, there was support coming from the NGO Biladi, who paid for the BSI website. Reasonable sort of in-kind support came from the website developer NetCentrix as pro bono work to support Blue Shield International. The next duties will be for the Treasurer's report. The next duties will be to finalize the registration at the Chamber of Commerce, to open the bank account, and to set up compliance rules for the finances. A draft for this sort of compliance rules was already made but postponed, also due to the not finalized articles of the association. Well, that's not so much to write home about Treasurer's report for this year. And I thank you for your attention.
Klaus, thank you very much. Does anybody have a question for Klaus, just so that we don't forget things as we go along? I see no questions, no hands raised. So with that, excuse me, I will cough again, my apologies. And we'll move on to the draft annual plan as circulated, which is mistakenly identified as the strategic plan in some of the documentation that you had sent out. So again, my apologies for that. The draft annual plan for next year builds on all of the work we've done over the last few years. I don't think there is a great need to go through it and pick out anything or many things. There are a couple, though, that I would like to just pick out very quickly. Under coordination, under 1.4, working with the National Committee of the Czech Republic regarding the feasibility of an in-person General Assembly in 2023. That's still a possibility. I think I saw Jana's name somewhere in the audience. But what I really want to flag with raising that point is the huge amount of work that the Czech Republic Committee put into the planning of the 2020 postponed General Assembly, and that they have been doing ever since. The newsletter that they produced for the annual conference, which was circulated to everybody and will be on the website soon if it's not there already, and the work that they did to get the viewing rights for 2 days for the destruction of memory. And I hope many of you took the opportunity of looking at that film over the weekend. It's a great thing. So I really just want to flag the enormous amount of work that Jana and her committee have done, and thank you very much for all of that. And I can't apologize for a corona, but we'll work from there and hope that we might be able to all see each other in Prague, if it still works, in 2023. But let's not tempt fate. I don't really think there is anything else that I want to flag in particular in this report, or sorry, in this proposed annual plan for next year. I see there are, Angela is asking a question, 1.8. The elaboration of 1.8 1.8 is the development of improved communication with national committees. I presume you mean 1.9, Angela, the develop and sign the formal agreements with UNESCO and the Smithsonian. You're nodding at me. Thank you. Okay. The point of these formal agreements, which we now have with NATO, with the UN peacekeeping deployment in Lebanon, with the International Committee of the Red Cross, and we hope in the next few months with UNESCO and the Smithsonian, is to build the credibility of the Blue Shield and to build the international profile of the Blue Shield. And that's the critical bit that these things form. To have the ICRC want to do an MOU with us, and for those of you who saw Helen Durham's presentation from the ICRC yesterday at the conference, the ICRC's real commitment to working more closely with Blue Shield is a massive step forward in our profile and our work internationally, and that's really where we're moving towards this whole package. So the idea is to build momentum for the movement with these international agreements. Angela, does that answer your question? Yes, it does. Thank you. Okay. I think that's that's the only question in the chat. Does anybody else want to question?
In the chat, Peter.
There's another question in the chat. Oh, could I elaborate on blocks 2 and 3 of the training program? Yes. Can I do that after we've voted? So unless, Emma, you have it immediately to hand.
No, but give me a second and I'll find it, and then after we voted, we'll bring it up.
Yeah, exactly. So my suggestion is we'll keep that question until we voted on the 3 documents that we now need to vote on. Once we've done the voting, had the confirm the results, I'll then answer that, because what I can do is put the block 2 proposed program at the moment up on the screen, and that will give us a much better idea than me trying to remember or use my memory. So if you'll bear with us, we'll do it that way round. So we are now, I think, at the stage, unless anybody has a question on either the report or the Treasurer's report or next year's provisional annual plan. I see nothing, so we are now ready to move to voting. Emma, do you want to say anything about the process of voting?
Good morning, everybody. Lovely to see you all here. For those who aren't familiar with the system, we're going to use a system called Election Runner, which we used last year and thought it was quite successful. Everybody should have received a voting agenda, those who are eligible to vote, or who are, those who are registered to vote, should all have received a voting agenda. That contains a URL that you should just be able to click on or paste into your browser, which will take you to this program, Election Runner. I'm just going to share my screen with you all. And as you can see, it will take you straight to the questions. It takes me, this is the administrative screen. And you should just be able to click your answers into the ballot. This is the wrong screen. I wanted the one we're actually voting on right now. And you should just be able to click your question and click the answers to whether you approve the documents. Very straightforward. If you have not received your agenda, please let me know right now. You should have a personalized agenda if you registered yourself as a voter. Please do identify yourselves if you don't have it. And I will have this live on screen now so you can see who is voting. Just for clarity, I get ticks next to your name when you voted, but I cannot see what you have voted. It's not possible for us to identify you from your vote. That is not a visible option. So we just can watch the results, wait for the results to come in, and in a couple of minutes, we'll declare the voting ended, and I will display the results. If anybody's got any questions, go for it. And if not, please do log your votes now using the URL in your agenda. You have a separate voting link for this block of questions and a second block voting link for the appointment of the Auditing Committee. So please do click the right one. Thanks. Close election, close. Back to close it, you've all submitted, which puts us into the results, which are everybody approves the report of the board. 2 people abstained from the Treasurer's report, and 100% of people approved the 2022 annual plan.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. If those who abstained on the Treasurer's report have an issue that they would like to raise with either myself or Klaus, Klaus preferably, because he'll probably understand any questions, then please don't hesitate to do so. But we can take it from there. But thank you very much indeed for doing that.
I'm not going to click publish right now. It will be made available in the minutes, and anybody can log on to this URL to see the results at any time. I will sort that out afterwards. Anybody can have access to this later. Hopefully that's okay.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Emma. Which takes us to then item 4, I think, the oh no, sorry, I've got two different versions here, but the next item, which is the election of the Auditing Committee. And Klaus, can I ask you just to reiterate the why we Auditing Committee and the process thereof, etc.
Yes, the Financial Auditing Committee, as was already mentioned by President Peter Stone, is has to be set up according to Dutch laws for associations. They have to install auditing committee consisting of at least 2 members of the association, as long as the association does not commission external professional auditors. This committee will have to audit the annual financial report and must determine that the financial report is sufficient and correct. The treasurer has to provide all information. Treasurer and of course the secretariat will provide all information which is needed, the balance sheet, explanations, etc., to allow the committee to do the work. The committee will be elected every year, and it is not mandatory but good practice that the committee members rotate. So I mean, it means that not committee members of the auditing committees are sitting there for a longer period, but rotate every 2 or 3 years maybe. It is what I want to emphasize, that it's important to notice this liability. The committee has to check the balance sheets, the incomes and expenses, make a report, pose questions to the treasurer or to the board or to the secretariat. The auditing committee is, so to say, the eye of the members on the financial conduct of the association, but there is no liability of committee members. So committee members are not liable if, what would never happen, of course, but if the association, the Blue Shield, would not conduct correctly the financial accounting or something like this, the auditing committee members will not be liable. The first report, as already was mentioned by Peter, the first report will not be a great deal, since the financial report, as indicates no income and expenses from the association directly. But we should start the process now to have an annual report for 2021 and to have a report of the auditing committee in 2022 for this report 2021. So if there are any questions to the auditing on the auditing committee, I would take questions now. Is it okay, Peter? Yeah. Otherwise, I would like to introduce the 2 candidates, or moreover, I would like to present them, to ask them to present themselves according to alphabetical order. We would start with Gerrit de Bruin, who is not with us, but Angela from the Netherlands, from the Committee of the Netherlands, will present Gerrit de Bruin shortly, briefly. Thank you. It's okay, though. Angela, would you start with presenting Gerrit de Bruin as a committee candidate?
I will. For those of you who know him, vote for him. For those of you who don't know him, also vote for him. Gerrit is attached to Blue Shield Netherlands, I think from early on, from 2002. He's been our treasurer ever since. He has a background in paper restoration and is extremely knowledgeable in the field of conservation of materials. I think that I have not much to add to anything that I've already stated in the form. If you don't know him, and if you get a chance to know him in person, please do, because he's not only very knowledgeable, but he's also a very nice guy. And he has been our treasurer. He's been very frugal. We don't have a lot of means, but he's, I know his euros stretch a long way. So I'm very confident that he will do a really good job in giving a report on money that's not there.
Okay, so thank you very much, Angela. Yes, it would be great to have somebody from the Netherlands who is experienced in the practice of accounting and auditing a little bit, and could help us at least for the first 1 or 2 years to help us a little bit to install this, to implement this committee. So then I may ask Dr. Ömer Dabanli, the president of ICON Turkey, to present himself briefly.
Thank you, Klaus. Dear President and dear members of the board and distinguished representative of all national committees of the Blue Shield, at the beginning of my short speech, I respectfully greet you from Istanbul, which connects the continents. I hope that our General Assembly will take important steps for the protection of cultural heritage. I would also like to thank the President for giving me the opportunity to address the General Assembly. First of all, I would like to introduce myself briefly. I think this will be useful for the voting and also as we just joined the Blue Shield family. I received my bachelor degree in civil engineering and architecture and master in structural engineering and PhD in restoration in Istanbul Technical University. Then I started my professional life with the development of various architectural and engineering projects, then concentrated on my work in the field of conservation and restoration of cultural heritage by providing scientific consultancy services for the preparation and implementation phases of the restoration projects of many monuments in Turkey as well as abroad. I took part as an executive and researcher in various research projects supported by national and international organizations, and I served as a member of the Cultural Heritage Preservation Board member in some regions and the advisor of Istanbul World Heritage Presidency. I am the founding director of Department of Restoration and Conservation of Cultural Heritage at my university, Fatih Sultan Mehmet Vakıf University. Also, I am a member of ICON Turkey and founding president of the Turkish National Committee of Blue Shield. I want to congratulate the 25th anniversary of the Blue Shield and thank to President Professor Stone and Emma Conley for their valuable support during the establishment of our national committee, and I am very happy to be joined in the Blue Shield family. As a election statement, I want to shift my statement. As a result of the synergy and unity that provided by the valuable contribution of all members of the Blue Shield family, the role of the Blue Shield in the protection of cultural heritage from disasters and crises is becoming greater than the past, both national and international levels. I foresee that this extraordinary role that has a significant potential will be developed and increase its influence in the near future. However, this situation imposes some certain duties and responsibilities on each of us. In this regard, I want to say that the contributions we can make in the protection of cultural heritage and peace in the world depend on the degree of our efforts and our courage to assume responsibility. With these thoughts, I believe the necessity to support all kinds of activities and services of the Blue Shield in both national and international level. I hope that the statements should have sufficiently and briefly explained my why I am nominated for this position. If I am deemed to be in the auditing committee by the votes of esteemed members, I will be honored to serve for the protection of World Cultural Heritage under the umbrella of Blue Shield International. Last thing, the other candidate, Mr. Breen, I think he's not here, but is also quite experienced, I think, experienced person. Maybe I would vote for him. I think this is not a competition or race, but a solidarity. And thank you for giving this opportunity to address the General Assembly. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to both candidates, or to, if there are any questions to the candidates, normally this opportunity should be for the members, but if there are no questions to the candidates, I may express that I'm very grateful that we have two candidates for this auditing committee, two valuable experts, and I would now hand over to Emma to start the voting on this auditing committee.
Thank you. Please do go vote. If anybody again has problems, give me a message in the chat or drop me an email, and I will share my screen when everybody's voted so you can all see.
May I, in the meantime, say some words to the future auditing committee? We will start. We have the treasurer's report, and we could start to work on the auditing committee's report early next year if we find a time for an appointment together by a Zoom meeting, for example, and then we try to step by step explore how we can work together, which questions we want to pose, suggestions concerning maybe also the guidelines for financing or accounting or whatsoever, so that we can have a very brief report, since there's not so much to report on this this year. We can have a very brief report ready for the next General Assembly, which shall be, as we heard, in May or June. So yes, once we have the results, I think I would, in the beginning of next year, I would get back to the committee to start the work.
So I don't think anybody has, well, we have one abstention, and otherwise both candidates are elected. Congratulations.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much to both candidates who have put their names forward for what at the moment is an easy task, but might well become fairly quickly an onerous task if we can just find some additional funding. So let's hope that we make that task onerous as time goes on. Okay. So to answer the earlier question about what is envisaged at the moment in block 2 and a little bit of block 3, just to take a step back, the overall idea of the training was to give some very general basic ideas about the sort of Blue Shield approach, what we think are the best ways of dealing with cultural property protection, getting everybody on the same page. And that was really block 1. And block 2 moves into, and the reason the title there is in red is because that's still a working title, but it's there to drill down a little bit more deeply into the work that has been introduced in block 1. So Michael will talk more about the military context continuum, which overlaps very much with the 4-tier approach that was flagged in block 1. Then there are some sessions on international law. So some brief introductions to the terminology and the types of law that are relevant for us. So international humanitarian law, human rights law, criminal law, customary law in particular. A very brief introduction to some of that broader context of, for example, UN Security Council resolutions, the 77 additional protocols to the Geneva Conventions, the Rome Statute, international criminal law, setting up the International Criminal Court, UNESCO's declarations and conventions. So that broader context is there. Then focusing in on our primary context, the 54 Hague Convention. Session 4 talking about the 2 key words, to my mind, in the Hague Convention, safeguarding and respect, emphasizing that if we don't do things in peacetime, you can't be quick enough to do things when a disaster hits or when armed conflict breaks out. Session 5 talks about the 3 levels of protection in the Hague Convention and the protocols. Session 6 talks about the refugees and safe havens and the distinction between those. 7 talks about essentially the illicit trade, illicit trafficking, both in terms of the first protocol and the 1970 convention. Session 8 talks about illicit trafficking, and we've said theoretically or in the theory relating to that, and then illicit trafficking, some examples in session 9, and then the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction as session 10. So all of those things mentioned in block 1, but drilling down in a bit more detail in block 2. And the aim of block 2, or we plan to deliver block 2 in the first quarter of next year, and that's where we're at there. And then if you would like just to scroll down a little bit, less detailed as block 3, because one of the key elements of block 3 that we hope to be able to do is increase the work of national committees and increase the contribution of national committees to the training. Talk about the best makeup or the suggested makeup of national committees, thinking about partners and how to work with them at a national level, principles of risk preparedness and management for cultural property protection, building capacity in terms of legal implementation, and again, how different national committees have been able to do that, really trying to learn from each other at this stage. You've had enough from us. We want the experience of national committees. Again, in terms of national level disaster response and post-disaster recovery, national committees, we want lessons identified from some of the recent case studies. For example, Beirut, the European floods, issues in Libya and Turkey also more recently, and we'll work on that and update that as time goes on. National level military coordination. We emphasize that Blue Shield internationally is an independent, neutral organization, but at a national level, that can't be as explicit, obviously, because you're working in a national context. And so you will be working with your national politicians, with your national government, with your national armed forces, with national humanitarian organizations. But what I want us all to try and think of and visualize is the triangle set within the circle that was used a number of times in the block one of the training and again in the conference over the last couple of days. And then, as you can see, we're still not fully clear what session 6 will be, and whether there will be session 6 could develop into 3 different sessions. So block 3 still a little bit unclear, but will become clearer as we get the feedback from block 1, as national committees think things through themselves, and as we get the feedback on block 2. So that's generally what we're looking at. But of course, block 2 may be modified given the responses to the block 1 training that we've had half of, and we've had some of the online evaluation forms returned, but not all. So does that give, I'm sorry, whoever asked that question, I now can't remember, enough, and anybody else, or are there any other questions about that? Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat. I can't see any hands raised, but I've got a reduced screen at the moment. Yes, so Inyuk, oh, is it you, of course, Inyuk, who asked the question at the beginning, so over to you.
Thank you. What is the method to cooperate between the BS International and the National Committee? Is it individually working? What is the process that we have to apply for it, or how does it work? Working closely between Blue Shield internationally and Blue Shield national committees is really a process of it can be a two-way process. In the 2 most recent examples of Blue Shield Germany finding funding to help support the development of national committees in Africa, that was a Blue Shield Germany initiative. In the same way, Blue Shield Turkey developing their research proposals was a Blue Shield Turkey initiative. Both asked for the support of Blue Shield International, which we were very pleased, obviously, to give. If you take a step further back to the coordination and the collaboration between Blue Shield Lebanon and Blue Shield International following the explosion in the 4th of August 2020, that was a conversation that happened. So the explosion took place about 6 o'clock on the 4th of August in the evening. Within 4 hours, I was talking to colleagues in Lebanon, and we worked on a dual approach to with colleagues in country, finding the real needs and identifying the real needs and producing a mainly visual report by that Sunday. So 4 days later, a visual report saying this is the problem, and what we had been doing with Blue Shield International over those 4 days was talking to a number of potential funding bodies, saying, once we get an understanding of the real problem, can we work quickly with you to allocate funding to go straight to colleagues in Lebanon? And that process worked. So we worked at sort of different speeds in different situations, but to the same end in that area. So it really is wherever a need arises and we have the capability. And I think that's the easiest way of explaining that. Does that answer your question? Not really, because
Not really.
when you said it,
okay.
When you say training course, I thought about, there's a duration, because if you want to cover all these sessions.
Oh, okay. So sorry.
So
yeah, I've misunderstood you in a way. Okay, so what happens with the training courses? So block 1 was all put up online, and anybody who wanted to, so all national committees were asked to take part in the training, but because of the disparate period of and the different time zones, we just produced the material so that people anywhere in the world could look at it when it was most appropriate for them to look at it. And we had that material being available, or most of it being available, for 6 weeks. And at the end of that 6-week period, we had 4 different time slots for feedback from national committees. 2 of those were at the weekend, one sort of orientated to Eastern time zones, one orientated to Western time zones, and one during the week, so that people could either do this during their working hours or during their non-working time, depending on how they had to do it. Because a couple of the final sessions were a little bit late, we postponed the first set of those 2 feedback groups to just after Christmas, and I think it's the first week of January that those are available. But so all of the block 1 material is still available online. If you haven't looked at it yet, I encourage anybody to look at it, and it gives you a really good basic understanding of where Blue Shield is at the moment and is trying to get to. And then block 2 will work in a similar way. We will make those provisional topics available with online presentations. Let's say, and I'm plucking a figure out of the air, but let's say we make that available on the 1st of March. We will give everybody again 6 weeks to look at that material, and then we'll have those 4 feedback sessions where national committees can talk and discuss, and then we'll also have online feedback that we can work for. So that feedback helps us develop the next block. And as I say, one of the biggest criticisms of block 1, for which I was the main culprit, was that a couple of the sessions were too long and they needed to be broken into smaller sessions. So that's there. And as Emma has just put into the chat, we'll be refining the content of block 2 once we've had those final feedback sessions on block 1 and the evaluation on block 1. So if that, does that now answer your question?
Yes.
Sorry, I misunderstood what you were asking.
Oh, so it's only available in English. So
at the moment it is available in predominantly English, but we have, and this is one of the questions that we're asking people, we have made transcripts, and I think we're going to get an example of this in a moment on the screen, but with subtitles in French, Spanish and Arabic. So there you go, you can see there are the subtitles in Arabic. And one of the issues with doing it this way is that to have that translation, we have to read out all of the English language on the PowerPoint. So for an English listener, English language listener, it becomes slightly frustrating. Whereas I normally wouldn't read every word of a PowerPoint. To get it translated into those other 3 languages, that's what we have to do. And that's a question that we are discussing with people in the feedback sessions as to whether that's, gone well or not. And also, because we're relying on Google Translate, what is the quality of those translations, and are they a help or a hindrance given some of the quality? And we've had a variety of different feedback, of which we'll have to try and work our way through. But if we can do anything better, then it's your course, tell us.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Just one more question.
please.
In order to take block 2, then you have to take block 1 first. It's a prerequisite.
I suppose my answer to that is you won't get nearly as much out of block 2 if you haven't done block 1, because
Okay,
block 1 lays the foundations, and there will be things that people say in block 2 that will have been explained and taught about in block 1, but they won't repeat that explanation in block 2.
Okay,
as I
thank
say,
you.
block 2 is drilling down more deeply. So we would encourage you, it doesn't matter, it's still up on the website. If you haven't had a chance to look at it now, you've got, you know, the next couple of months to look at it before probably block 2 will be up and running.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience. Thank you.
No, don't worry. My mistake. I misunderstood your question.
May I just add in, we expect the translations using Google are probably not great in languages that are not a Latin alphabet. The French one is not good, but it is reasonable, for example. I don't know about the Arabic, but the actual process of translating them, now we've practiced it, to put them into other languages is actually fairly simple. So if you would like us to put it into a different language, we can certainly try to do that. Just drop me an email. I can make no promises for the quality, but it shouldn't be that hard to do because we found a way to do entire documents at once. So do just drop me an email if you'd like me to try and put it into, you know, any other languages, everybody.
Okay, yep, that's a good one. Thank you, Emma. To answer another question in the chat from Manana, Blue Shield, Georgia, she asks, is block 2 complete already? No, absolutely not. We have begun to think about what will go into those different sessions, but we haven't, as far as I'm aware, started any recording yet. So we're waiting until we have the feedback from block 1, the feedback from the web material, and then we'll start preparing block 2. And so there is a definite option for national committees to get involved, possibly in block 2, certainly in block 3. Okay, I hope that answers everybody's questions. I'm just looking at everybody. I don't see any more hands raised or any other feedback questions in the chat. So thank you for all of that. And we've confirmed the vote of for the Auditing Committee, which brings us to the penultimate topic. One of the things that the board has been doing, and in particular the Vice President Kidong Bai has been doing, is developing a whole process around the accreditation of training courses. And that's been a really important element of our work. And as such, I've asked Kidong to do a short presentation about that so that we can begin to again establish ourselves as somebody, or an organization rather, that others may come to for accreditation, and that also that we can accredit national committee training if that becomes appropriate. So Kidong, thank you for joining us. I'm not quite sure how late it is in Korea, but I'm sure it's not as early as you would like it to be, but over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for your good introduction about my work. And also I really thank to Peter and also Emma to prepare all this General Assembly. And we had a very excellent the presentation yesterday and the day before yesterday. Yeah, to make it short, anyway, this is a report of accreditation of a training program, and the contents already. Peter introduced some. The theme of training course is just in his previous talk. This is a kind of accreditation of training program proposed by some institutes or some organizations in some area. Before I start to introduce the training accreditation, the checklist. To build up this checklist, I have to say some thanks to the some contributor, including Lydia Klupse from Poland, and In-kyung Chang. You have seen her in previous talking just a few minutes ago, and some other steps from the Blue Shield Korea. That's okay. There is a major contributor in addition to me, and we started this work in January 2018, and during the last couple of years, we proposed some tentative checklist of a training course, and board members discussed about the relevancy of the questions and the numbers of question areas, and also the how the contents of the checklist. So anyway, right now is we complete accreditation checklist for the accreditation of training program, and we say that the version 3.2. So this is at this moment we are proposed anyway the complete checklist of accreditation, but in the future with your good the suggestions, I think we need to improve the questions and the scope of the contents included in the checklist of accreditation. Currently, I think you can see in some document posted on the Blue Shield. Now the checklist of accreditation is there are it is consists of several sections, as the sections including the content, the detailed description of an institution that proposed the training course, and also it includes some summary of objective and the structure and the type of method of the training programs, and also the administration and the management structure of the organizer, and also some description of a secretariat, the partnership, and the administration and the management system of institutions. And also there is a sections of training program management and the qualification criteria, teaching material, lecturer, and the certificate, etc. Specific structure of the program should be included in the training program management, and the facility, equipment, service, and also they have to describe the budget and the source of finance and anyway funding source, and also they need to describe the post-evaluation after the training course, and also the follow-up management should be described in the checklist. So is a checklist is consists of about 10 pages. So or in total, the 59 questions included in the checklist. So there is a basic structure of the checklist, and for the detailed questions, I think you need to check into the document, please. I think you can find in the Blue Shield web page. And also, so we suggest some guideline for the application of accreditation of training programs. The application should be submitted is 6 months prior to the program begins, because we need some review process during that 6 months. So at least I think 6 months needed to review between the Blue Shield International and some organization who proposed a training course. And the checklist, we also provide some guideline for checklist will be evaluated on the point of a principle below. Impact of a program on the expansion of philosophy and the knowledge of heritage protection under any kind of wars, conflict, disaster, and other emergent context. And also the feasibility of a program management with the consideration of readiness of financial resources and completion of teaching staff and the leadership, etc. And another one is the feasibility of a BSI in the region where the program takes place. So it is 3 categories. The basic, principle to evaluate the checklist, and also we proposed the one guideline. Once the program accredited, a report should be submitted to the committee in 3 months after completion of a training program for evaluation. Evaluation will be used as a reference for the re-accreditation of the program in the future. So, during the program, I think they collected some they needed to monitoring the monitoring about their programs. So and also they should they should suggest some the report about their the training program, and also evaluation of accredited program may be done by observer delegated by the BSI. So during the program, the BSI can send a summon to attend the program and evaluate at the field. And also we suggest as one guideline, preparation of a training program can be consulted and assisted by the BSI. So BSI, provide some basic guideline for to form the training course, but anyway, they also can consult and assist the program to be formed. There is our report about the build up the checklist of accreditation and the training program in the future for BSI. So if you have any suggestions, I think we can resolve the current checklist and then improve our checklist of accreditation of the training program for the future. Anyway, thank you very much. Yeah. Peter.
Okay, thank you very much, Kidong. That very helpful, very useful. I see in the chat that Emma has said, because we're changing the website, the documentation won't be up until early next year, but everybody will be able to see it at that point. But thank you so much for all of the work that you and your group have done on that. It's going to be extremely useful. Okay, first question then, does anybody have any questions on any of that for Kidong, or are you happy just to wait until you can see the documentation? Okay, no questions that I see, no questions in the chat. Okay, so that's there. Which brings us to the last bit of the meeting. Is there any other business? I have a few little bits of any other business, but I ask anybody else now, does anyone else have any other business? No. Okay, so my any other business is very quick and dead easy. I simply want to thank people effectively, and to just flag a couple of things that have just gone up in the chat. So before I forget, the following the conversation about the training program, the feedback meetings on block 1 that still have to take place are on the 9th of January, which I think is a Sunday, and Emma has put the links to those in the chat here, and that will be open to anybody who has had chance to look at those sessions in block 1. So please do look at those if you haven't already, and please do contribute to that feedback. Really, as I say, the last I would like to do is to thank people. So I thank firstly the founding 4 for their continued support. That's the international organizations for archives, for museums, for monuments and sites, and for libraries. I thank the board and the Bureau for all of their hard work over the last year, and more, of course. I especially thank 3 people, or 2 people that you've heard from today, Klaus and Kidong, for their work. Klaus and somebody you haven't heard from, but Sophie as well, for their work on the Accreditation Committee and for being part of the Bureau. For Kidong for doing all of the work that he's just talked about accreditation of training courses, and joining us as Vice President on the Bureau. So thank you very much to those colleagues in particular, but also to all members of the board and Bureau. Thanks in particular again to 2 of those as the Accreditation Committee. Klaus and Sophie work closely on the Accreditation Committee with Emma. So again, thank you for your time and commitment for that. I'd like to thank the working group on trafficking, who give all of their time as volunteers, but added to their work by setting up that working group. And that's been incredibly supportive and helpful, and came out in some of the conference proceedings yesterday, or presentations, the importance of that work, even though much of it is hidden from sight. When there are successes, as Patty Gerstenblith, the chair of that committee, was able to report on yesterday, sorry, the day before yesterday, they're dramatic and they're really good. And so that work is great. Also to thank those people who are trying to build the working group on emergency response. I'm sure that will come together, and I'm sure that will make Blue Shield even more visible and even stronger in the future. I in particular want to thank many of the volunteers who aren't there on the board or the bureau. They're not there on a working group, but they just slog away in the background, doing so much work. We've thanked Jessica Barry already, but Jessica has also done lots of work, not only on social media, but has been starting a whole series of interviews linked to the 25th anniversary. She's now interviewed the 4 people from the different organizations who actually signed the Blue Shield into existence. And those interviews will soon be up on the new website in the new year. Also, to thank with Jessica, Martin, whose second name I don't think I've ever known, but Martin, who has been helping Jessica do all the editing of those. Martin Cox, thank you very much, Emma. Martin Cox, who's helped Jessica do all the editing of those interviews. And there is a series of interviews still planned of people who have had key inputs into the history of Blue Shield over the last 25 years. So that's there. I thank Marcella, and I've known Marcella for probably 2.5 years now, and I still can't pronounce her second name, but Slazanska, I think, or thereabouts. My apologies once again, Marcella. But Marcella has been doing interviews with national committees, and much shorter interviews than the ones that Jessica has done, but just getting a flavour of the activity that national committees do. Some of those are up on the website already, others are on the way. Thanks to Yasmin and Lawrence, our 2 interns who've worked with us. Thanks to one of our PhD students, Brittany Bradford, for doing various bits in the background. And thanks to Michael de la Cruz, who is our 0.5 member of the Secretariat. But critically, thanks to Emma. Without her, almost none of this could happen. We would not have had a General Assembly today. We would not had a successful conference over the last 2 days, and Emma has just does extraordinary work. I get emails from her morning, noon, and night at the weekend, and she's just an extraordinary individual. So without her, the Blue Shield would not be where it is today. So thank you very much to Emma. I see there are a couple of chats coming through, comments in the chats. You see, that's another thing that Emma does. It works as my memory. So as I can't know Martin's second name, Emma immediately remembers it. Sophie there, thanking everybody. Bijan on behalf of ICOMOS, Claire on behalf of IFLA, thank you. And that will just go on for a little time. So that's there. Finally, the group I really want to thank are the national committees, because without the national committees, we would not have a basis and the foundation of working with everybody else. So national committees are key, but we're going to grow into a bigger, larger, stronger organization that we need to work out our relationship with the national committees slightly more carefully. But that's going to be an exciting journey to go on. And I think starting the next 25 years, I'm not going to be around for the 25 years, but I hope to be around for the next 5 years or so. And let's hope that those are exciting or as exciting and as successful as the last 5, 10, 25 years have been. So thank you to everybody. Thank you for all of you coming to this General Assembly, and we will be back at a General Assembly within the next 6 months, I'm afraid. But after that, we will roll into a normal process of annual General Assemblies. So thank you very much indeed. that's it, really. Thank you to everybody who's putting thanks up, and goodbye. Have a good festive season and holiday, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Thank you to everybody. Bye-bye.